onto PC now. Yeah, I did some of this stuff back in the day, and um, I think sometimes the confusion that people get is that they can just put on some headphones and that they can just sort of like lay still. But the thing that we got from last time in reading this is that it is a practice, just like any other kind of meditative practice, which, okay, so before I do any kind of stuff with binaural beats, and I'm not going to go on too long, but, excuse me, what do I do with binaural beats? It's like, well, do you even meditate? Do you even sit down for 5 minutes and just be still?
Exactly.
On a daily basis. I was at this comic book convention and outside of like the questions about movies, the guy that wrote Frank Miller, the guy that did like 300 and Dark Knight, right? Like the Dark Knight and stuff. People were asking Frank Miller all these questions, and a lot of them had to do with like the whole, DC movies and stuff. But then somebody was asking a question, and he was there with Brian Azzarello, who wrote this awesome series called 100 Bullets and a lot of like crime stuff. And Frank Miller was kind of confused by this dude's question. And Brian Azzarello looks over and he says, "This is one of those, how do I become a better writer questions?" And Brian Azzarello kind of turns to him and he's like, "Dude, do you write every day? Like every day? Like, do you write? Like, can you write about anything? Can you write about your breakfast? Like, can you write about how you, this conversation that you had? Can you write about the most mundane things and like make them interesting, So for anybody that's kind of like starting off doing this or has done, and don't get me wrong, obviously we have like the collected experience of, doing CE5, where a lot of us, that was like one of the first questions I asked one of our members. I was like, "Do you like meditate a lot?" And he was like, "No, like I'm not very, I didn't go to India and practice yoga for 10 years. And he was like, "We just kind of will see what happens." And I think that's one of the cool things about meditation and about the mind is that you do not have to, it's not like the same. It's like going to the gym, but it's like not the same. You don't have to like cram your body full of protein and like high quality vitamins and minerals. You can kind of do that from drawing from the ether itself, So anyway, just want to say, don't be scared off of it, but also like, you're not going to shoot lightning bolts out of your fingers like, you're the Sith or something, even though that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think we can be trusted with that. All right. So I think we left off talking about biofeedback, the third consciousness altering methodology. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. No.
Oh, no.
Not yet.
All right. Sorry, viewers. Here we go. So the third consciousness altering methodology, which will be briefly described as biofeedback. Biofeedback is somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor, and sensory cortices, and assorted pain or pleasure centers. Okay, so this is going to be cool when we actually, let's see, just wanted to make sure we can edit that out. Okay. So instead of suppressing the left hemisphere as is done in hypnosis, or largely bypassing and ignoring it as done in transcendental meditation, biofeedback teaches the left hemisphere first to visualize the desired result and then to recognize the feelings associated with the experience of successful right hemisphere access to the specific lower cerebral cortex, pain or pleasure, or other areas in the manner needed to produce the desired result. Special self-monitoring devices such as the digital thermometer are used to inform the left brain when it succeeds in keying the right hemisphere. So we talked about this a little bit. The Tibetan Buddhist who can, put a wet blanket on himself in the highest mountains and get steam to come off of it.
Right.
So it says here, the subject can mentally left brain associate the sensations experienced with the result achieved, like raising your body temperature, and can begin to associate the sensations experienced with the result achieved and can begin to emphasize by memory recall the same process to cause its strengthening by affirmation and repetition. So basically mind over matter.
Right.
In this way, pain can be blocked, healing can be enhanced, malignant tumors, i.e. the C word, can apparently be suppressed. We are not doctors and we are not saying that you can do that. That's just what this CIA D-class document is saying. And ultimately destroyed. The body's pleasure centers can be stimulated and a variety of specific physiological results can be achieved. In addition, biofeedback may be used to so they're saying biofeedback as in like you're thinking about you're thinking about being cold, or you're thinking about being hot, or you're thinking about your elbow not being in pain, or you're thinking about yourself having a raised amount of energy. You know, I'm sitting over here drinking a coffee, like we suffer from fatigue a lot. And yet for some reason, it's like we can change the way our body behaves by actually telling it how to behave, or how we want it to behave. The mother who can lift a car off her baby kind of thing. Who have no experience in meditative techniques and whose progress in methodology is enhanced through visualization. Okay, so visualization and focusing, not being distracted. Okay, number 5, Joey, gateway and hemisync. Now that we've briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering and expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives, audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain hemisync. That means getting the left brain and the right brain to stop working independently of one another, or interdependently rather, because things go through our left hemisphere, which is like the doorman, and then the right hemisphere, which is like, you know, inside of the club, and the more abstract thinking, but actually getting them to work sort of, now it's sort of like an open air club where it's like there is no door and there's still activity going on. And so, you know, anything can kind of access it. It says here that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green at the Menninger Foundation found the subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation can consistently establish hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes. Okay, so that's with 20 years of practice. But it says here, this focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we translate in Western terms as single-mindedness. And this gets into, if you're listening to the tapes, beyond focus 3. There's a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. Okay, so in post, you would move on to this part, number 6, lamp versus laser. So we covered a lot of those concepts of like how it works. And I mean, did you have any comments about just like when you were studying this stuff?
No, but I do have a kind of a letter from our sponsor here. Oh. I did not tell you, Jerry, we have a sponsor, and it has we have, speaking of binaural beats, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Shaman Digital Drugs. They distribute AK binaural beats. They use high quality binaural technology, synths, and at a low cost of $1. Shaman Digital Drugs will give you a bang for your buck. This season, the drug of choice they have in order is called Sour Pie. So I will be linking the Instagram link, and also I'll be linking they do their business through. It's my funded own company by myself. So so we will. Yeah, I'm
interested to see what people's results are with that. I genuinely am.
Yeah, I actually started this up last week, and so thanks to our sponsor, Sour Pie, and you can continue there, Jerry.
Well, moving right along, I'm actually interested to try this. Let's give that a try. But this is lamp versus laser. So was that what was that? Shamanic beats, shamanic sounds.
Shaman Digital Drugs.
What's the name of that again? Shaman Digital Drugs. Check it out. Leave your results in the comments. So moving on, number 6, lamp versus laser. Melissa Yeager uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp, which expends energy in the form of both heat and light. Okay, Joey, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over a wide area rather than limited depth. I think we can see where they're going with this. On the other hand, the human mind, under the discipline of hemisync, acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy, found in a similar surface area of the sun. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it is possible to begin accelerating both so that the human mind is soon resonating at ever higher vibrational levels. This is cool. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. So they're talking about the right brain there. Would you do me a favor, Joey? While I'm talking, could you look up the word rarefied?
Sure.
See what they mean by rarefied. It's RARIFIED. I don't think that was I think they use that word deliberately, usually when stuff like this is written up. So they specifically chose to use that word. So rarefied, basically anything that isn't Snapchat, Facebook, or, we see those energies all the time.
Rarefied.
I thought, go ahead.
Of low pressure than usual, thin. Of air, especially at high altitudes, rarefied. So rarefied, ARREFIED.
That's it. That's the one.
Okay. All right. And then the second, distant from lives and concerns of ordinary people. That's the second description.
Interesting how those are the two definitions. Wow. Okay. So rarefied. So maybe something that is both thinner. Do you remember that line from the Incubus song where they take the clip from the science video where they say that they discovered that what you could see, touch, taste, smell, and hear was less than 1/1000th with a TH of reality? It's something to open your mind to, really. We sort of assume, or we assume that this is all there is. Okay, so the frequency following response. Okay, scenarios, oral perception, the mechanics by which the mind exercises the consciousness function will be addressed in more detail later in this paper. Okay. Number 7. You got anything, Joey, so far?
No, you're doing great, brother. Take it away.
7, a frequency following response. To achieve synchronization of brain hemispheres, right? That's the goal. The hemisync technique takes advantage of a phenomenon known as the frequency following response, or FFR, which means that if a subject hears a sound produced at a frequency which emulates one of those associated with the operation of the human brain, the brain will try to mimic the same frequency pattern by adjusting its brainwave output. Okay, that's cool. The first thing that comes to mind is like the brown note, It's the brain interpreting that, and not the similar to like, our fine sponsor, being able to mimic the feelings of something associated with it by mimicking its vibration. Okay. So it says, therefore, if the subject is in a fully awake state, but hears sound frequencies, which approximates brainwave output at the theta level, the subject's brain will endeavor to alter its brainwave pattern from the normal beta to theta level. Since the theta level is associated with sleep, the subject concerned may progress from a fully awake to a sleep state, provided that he does not consciously resist. We're talking about the FFR, frequency following response. The response follows the frequency. Provided that he does not consciously resist as the brain strives to entrain its wave frequency output with the one which the person hears. Since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds, since these brainwave frequencies are outside the spectrum of sounds which can be heard in pure form by the human ear, hemisync must produce them based on another phenomenon known as the brain's capacity for deducing beat frequencies. If the human brain is exposed to one frequency in the left ear, which is 10 hertz, below another audible frequency played in the right ear, rather than hearing either of the two audible frequencies, the brain chooses to, quote, hear the difference between them, the beat frequency, thus availing itself of the FFR phenomenon. And using the technique of beat frequencies, the gateway system uses hemisync and other audio techniques employing the FFR phenomenon to introduce a variety of frequencies which are played at a virtually subliminal, marginally audible level. I will say this, I've been messing around with the gateway hemisync things, and I almost was wondering before reading this if there was actually anything going on in the audio. Like I didn't hear like any kind of like frequency that my brain was like trying to distinguish, or like a literal, sound. Our audible range is very, very narrow, just like our visual range. You can't see microwaves. You can't see radiation. Like you can really just see light, which is like a very, very small portion of like the large, like electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
So that makes sense as to why, if you use hemisync, or if any of the listeners are going in and doing any of these, it may seem like you're not hearing anything, but you have to get into a relaxed state, kind of, don't resist or anything. And your brain, well, we're talking about subliminal suggestion, right? Maybe certain entities could be employing this for some less than altruistic purposes.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't do that, would they? No. Wait, where is this paper from again? Okay. The objective is to relax the left hemisphere of the brain, place the physical body in a virtual sleep state, and bring the left and right hemispheres into coherence under conditions designed to promote the production of ever higher amplitude and frequency of brainwave output. Sounds a lot like a certain practice that our little clique likes to get together and do, doesn't it?
It does.
And like when you get into a good meditative state, like you're not so much like, conscious of like, this is my hand, I'm picking up the coffee, I'm smoking the cigarette, which isn't good for you. I'm getting into the position. What they're talking about the left side of the brain. Again, I know you guys have gotten tired of me hearing me talk about, but that's like the left side is like that's a cat, that's a dog, that's wet, that's hot, that will burn me. That's it. The right side is like I really like this scene in this movie because the interaction between these two characters is resonating with me, because it reminds me of a time that I didn't really know what I was feeling, but it felt like love. Like that's the right side. You know what I mean? Okay. So you relax that logical left side. We're hearing these frequencies and we're trying to get the right and left hemispheres to talk to one another. It goes on to say, audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf, which you'll hear in those, to mask the sound of frequencies where desirable. In this way, Gateway endeavors to provide the subject with the tools by which he may alter his consciousness based on his own volition over time through the repetitive use of the tapes, so as to access, via intuitive means, new categories of information not available to ordinary consciousness.
That's fucking huge.
So it sounds like it's something that's not easy. It sounds like it's just like yoga or working out. You'll get results, but through consistent practice, just like everything else in life.
That sounds like you're entering the library of of the universe. Basically. I was just thinking about that before we started the pod. Like, how does one access information? Like, you ever hear about people like getting hit over the head, or I don't have any like anecdotal stories, but people learning languages they shouldn't, or right.
Sometimes some things more creepy, sometimes things more artistic. Like, how does a kid just know to draw,
Right.
Where do they get these from? Like, or to write, Philip K. Dick writing, a story and it turning out to be just like this book in the Bible, where do these things come from? So what information do we access? Healing, contact, creativity, sounds like creativity is 8. Role of resonance. However, brain coherence through entertainment to beat frequencies introduced via stereo headphones is only part of the reason why the gateway system works. It is also designed to achieve the physical quietude characteristics of deep transcendental meditative states, which brings about a complete alteration of the fundamental resonance pattern associated with the sound frequencies produced by the human body. Okay. Yoga, Zen, or transcendental meditation, if practiced long enough, will produce a change in the sound frequency with which the human heart resonates throughout the entire body.
Wow.
According to Bentov, yes, we have neurons on our heart, right? You can think with your heart. There's a reaction happening there. So according to Bentov, this change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentov describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows. When the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse reaches the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks in to go into the where the aorta forks in two to go into the legs. Part of the pressure pulse rebounds and starts traveling up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood and a new pressure pulse is traveling down, these two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an interference pattern. Stress, maybe? By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation, in that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. The result is a regular, rhythmic sine wave pattern of sound which echoes throughout the body and rises up into the head in sustained resonance. The amplitude of this sine wave pattern is measured with a sensitive seismographic type instrument is about 3 times the average sound volume produced by the heart when it's operating normally. Okay, comments?
So they can measure it, which is great.
Yeah, this is a measurable thing.
I wonder what kind of equipment they're using.
There's always been this sort of like medical tech and everything.
It could be just like a heart.
There's the heart. There's the aorta. Oh, so the aorta is like a gigantic artery.
Artery.
Oh, is it a nerve? Is it a nerve?
No, artery.
We're not doctors here. Okay, yeah. So that's why, yeah, you don't want to get like stabbed in the leg or anything. You have a huge blood vessel there. Oh, okay. Dude, I see. This is why like we need to study a little bit of everything. So your heart beats and the actual pressure goes up and it goes down, but it actually, when it's beating and it's going down, there is actually a kind of rebound effect. But then when the heart is not in a fully relaxed regular state, it's pumping again and they're kind of like colliding. So in an ideal pace, that signal is going like, it sounds like it's the difference between like a traffic jam and like good music, you know? Okay. So there's actually like physical effects of this. Okay, Joey, and stop me, dude, if you got any comments or anything.
You're doing great, brother.
Number 9, brain stimulation. We're not even halfway through all this. Brain stimulation. Bentov's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance. Okay, so the physiological effect of what happens to our body when we are in hemisync. See how we're kind of going backward there? So we get in hemisync. Our body is actually vibrating at a different tone, like physically, like from the heart. Brain stimulation. Bentov's biomedical model shows that this resonance is of considerable importance since it is directly transmitted to and impacts upon the brain. The resulting vibration is received and transmitted into the brain itself via the fluid-filled third and left ventricles located above the brainstem. An electromagnetic pulse is then generated, which stimulates the brain to raise the amplitude and frequency of brain wave output. just as Dr. Twemlow observed in his research on the effects of the hemisync tapes. Okay, so science stuff. This has been measured. Also, the brain is contained in a tight membrane called the dura, which is in turn cushioned by a thin layer of fluid located between it and the skull. As the coherent resonance produced by the human heart in a state of profound relaxation reaches the fluid layers surrounding the brain, it sets up a rhythmic pattern in which the brain moves up and down approximately 5 thousandths to 1/100th of a millimeter in a continuous pattern. The self-reinforcing character of resonant behavior accounts for the body's ability to sustain this movement despite the minimal level of energy involved. In this way, the entire body, based on its own micro motion, functions as a tuned vibrational system, which transfers energy in a range between, wait for it, Joey, tell me if this sounds familiar, a tuned vibrational system which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionospheric cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bentov states, this is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, or just about the perimeter of the planet. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are embedded.
This is getting crazy insane, dude.
Doug, you going, dude, we're not even halfway down the rabbit hole. We're like a quarter through this paper. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate. I'm pretty sure that means like dissolve, much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. It is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal.
What the fuck?
Bentov. Who's this Bentov guy?
Well, let's look him up.
Here, you've got I've got the screen share on, right? We got 8 minutes. Is Itzhak Bentov. Itzhak Bentov was an Israeli-American scientist, inventor, mystic, and author. His many inventions include the steerable cardiac catheter, helped pioneer the biomedical engineering industry. Don't know much about this guy. I'm always, you know me, Joey, healthy bit of skepticism, and that little checkered board floor in his book has got me kind of thinking, Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty, dude. This is interesting. This is beyond interesting. Why is this not taught in schools?
Oh, I mean, stalking the wild pendulum. Okay. Well, and listen, I've got certain opinions about certain. I'm just a guy who's got opinions, and everybody's got one. Everybody's got them. The universe, the kindling the Kundalini. There's I've seen some interesting stuff regarding Einstein basically having stolen a lot of his so-called works from some of the more respected and more I guess less, like you said, man, like what is this stuff taught in school? Like, why is it not taught in school? We're all taught certain things in school, and there's certain things we are deliberately not taught. And, regardless, I think that there's, I have this thing when I talk to people, okay, before we, get kicked out of here, and we can actually continue the podcast too. I'm not doing anything if you're not, but
for sure.
I say this to people. I say, I've got this pencil. This is actually a dog treat. Hey, Ghost, do you want a treat? So I've got this dog treat, right? Now, if I drop this, it's going to fall at 9.8 meters per second squared. Okay. It's just one of the few things I remembered from physics, right? Stuff falls at a free fall rate of, it's going to accelerate at 9.8 meters per second square until it reaches terminal velocity, which on Earth is, I'm not sure what that is. I have gone skydiving before though. That was awesome. But that's what I was thinking is I'm falling at a certain rate. So the reason I bring up Einstein being a fraud and whatever these books that these guys, great artists invent, good artists invent, better artists steal, but this is going to fall at 9.8 meters per second squared, whether I am a Democrat or I'm a Republican or I'm apolitical or I'm a boy or I'm a girl or I'm white, I'm black, I'm Spanish. Like this is a penny. This is made of a certain amount of copper, So right. Regardless where, and especially since we live in an age in which, gosh, man, like anyone can make a YouTube video, and I was actually listening to a podcast on a very a heartbreaking event that took place. And one of the gist of this podcast was like, a lot of people said this thing didn't happen and a lot of people got in trouble over it. And she was saying, it's like you can throw up a YouTube video and a lot of people take a lot of their truth from YouTube, so like I am, like we are, man, like we try to eliminate the untrue until like only the true is left. But I guess Isaac Bentov, sorry, I went up on a tangent there, but I mean, it's like, do your own research, and I need to learn more too about those things about like, Einstein and stuff. But anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but this guy Bentov, he has a lot of books that are associated with him, including books like Stalking the Wild Pendulum. That sounds like badass, but a cosmic book. And it seems like he had what is it? The Mechanics of Consciousness. Yeah, this guy had a great deal of work attributed to him. So all right. So he's saying that basically we can get our bodies in hemisync and have them resonate at the same frequency at which the Earth itself resonates, which it's saying is, can permeate any object or anything. And of course, we're probably talking about like projection and astral projection. I know some people that project a little too much. Consequently, the gateway process designed to rapidly introduce a profound calm within the nervous system and to significantly lower blood pressure to cause the circulatory system, skeleton, and all other physical organ systems to begin vibrating coherently at approximately 7 to 7.5 cycles per second. So for anybody who's following, which we hope that you are, you're one with the universe, that's what they've always kind of alluding to. But apparently if you see like those videos, like the Earth's frequency and stuff. Okay. So moving on, the resulting resonance sets up a regular repetitive sound wave, which propagates in consonance with the electrostatic field of the Earth. So you're tuning in, basically you're tuning you are provoking you're creating the conditions by which your body becomes a tuning fork that is in harmony with the rest of the planet.
I was just about to say a tuning fork. It sounds like tuning fork. We are, receivers are like a tuning fork, basically. Yeah.
You ever get into like a group setting where you guys are like brainstorming or think tanking and everyone's like on the same page, or you're all talking about aliens, or you're all talking about red pill stuff, or you're all talking about whatever, and it just kind of, you get that feeling, you get that vibe that like everybody's like, everybody's clicking, right? Okay, looks like we got about 2:23 here. The link should still work, so I'm just going to jump back in if we get kicked off here. Okay,
yeah, we still got about 2 minutes.
Okay, cool. Energy entrainment. As the body is turned into a coherent oscillator vibrating in harmony with the surrounding electrostatic medium, the specific exercises included in the gateway tapes enjoin the participant to build up the energy field surrounding his body, presumably by using energy from the Earth's field, which the body is now in training because of its ability to resonate with it. This puts the body's energy field into homogeneity with its surrounding environment and promotes movement of the seat of consciousness into the surrounding environment, partly in response to the fact that the two electromagnetic mediums are now a single energy continuum. Thus, the same process which moves the brain into a focused coherence at steadily higher levels of frequency and amplitude so as to entrain analogous frequencies in the universe for data collection also promotes enhancement of bodily energy levels to a point adequate to permit the subject to experience an out-of-body movement when he is ready to do so. In parentheses, it says, and we're about to get kicked out of here. In parentheses, it says, more will be said about this topic later. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere in the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other minds similarly tuned.
All right, we're going to take a quick break.
You catch that last
we'll
part?
Be right back. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, we got Jerry back. All right.
No, I'm back.
All right, let me make you host.
Okay. Did you miss me?
Every day, brother.
Every day.
Change the host. There you go.
Okay, so can we get to where, okay, we are going to see each other in this here. So let me just go ahead and, here we go. All right, so back to the paper, guys. We left off on number 11. But the last sentence here really grabbed me. In addition, by resonating with the Earth's electromagnetic sphere, the human body creates a surprisingly powerful carrier wave to assist the mind in communication activity with other human minds similarly tuned. What you got? Number 11, consciousness and energy. Okay. Before our explanation can proceed any further, it is essential to define the mechanism by which the human mind exercises the function known as consciousness, and to describe the way in which that consciousness operates to deduce meaning from the stimuli which it receives. To do this, we will first consider the fundamental character of the material world in which we have our physical existence in order to accurately perceive the raw stuff with which our consciousness must work. The first point which needs to be made is that the two terms, matter and energy, tend to be misleading if taken to indicate two distinctly different states of existence in the physical world as we know it. Indeed, if the term matter is taken to mean solid substance as opposed to energy, which is understood to mean force of some sort, then the use of the former is entirely misleading. Science now knows that both the electrons which spin in the energy field located around the nucleus of the atom and the nucleus itself are made up of nothing more than oscillating energy grids. Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, the atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds. In his book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum, Itzhak Bentov gives the following figures. The energy grid, which composes the nucleus of the atom, vibrates at approximately 10 raised to the 22nd power, that's 22 zeros, hertz, which means 10 followed by 22 zeros. At 70 degrees Fahrenheit, an atom oscillates at the rate of 10 to the 15 power hertz. An entire molecule composed of a number of atoms bound together in a single energy field vibrates in the range of 10 raised to the 9 power hertz. A live human cell vibrates at approximately 10 raised to the third, or 1,000 hertz, or 1 megahertz. So 10 to the third hertz is a live human cell. The point to be made is that the entire human, okay, this was where it really gets cool. The point to be made is that the entire human being, brain, consciousness, and all is, like the universe which surrounds him, nothing more or less than an extraordinarily complex system of energy fields. The so-called states of matter are actually variances in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states. The so-called states of matter are actually variances in the state of energy, and human consciousness is a function, or like a byproduct, or I'm sorry, human consciousness is what happens when the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest, in a manner described in the following paragraph. Holograms.
I want to real quick. So they're basically saying solid matter is just energy grids.
It's energy grids on energy on energy grids.
That's
because
crazy.
if you really got down to the thing that makes up things that are made up, the things that make up things, you know, everything goes down to like, we're all atoms, right? Our
Right.
organs are atoms. This is already like making my head hurt. Yeah. Our brain, everything is made up of atoms that all knows how to behave. And so, but it always just is, it's just oscillating energy. And and stalking the wild pendulum, the energy grid, which composes the nucleus of the atom. Okay. So like we've seen that little, it's like a ball of like protons and neutrons with the little electrons spinning around it.
Right.
That's an illustration of it. That's no one's ever like seen an atom. Like we have like microscopes that we kind of see like the results. I'm not a scientist, but like, I don't think that's actually a picture of an atom. I think that's just like a picture of what an atom, to like understand what it is, because what it is it's actually, it says here, so the nucleus of the atom, the energy grid vibrates at approximately 10 to the 22nd hertz. There's a thing called the Planck constant, and I think we're going to talk about a little bit of that later, but it's like the smallest movement that anything can do in the universe is the Planck constant. So Nassim Harriman touched on that. So, okay. So yeah, basically everything, as stuff becomes more solid, I guess, Joey, what they're saying is, as we get more into like the solid realm, the things that we actually experience are just things vibrating at smaller, with less and less of a magnitude. So it's just things that are vibrating a little slow. It's like ice. You got water, but then you freeze it. It's going from a state of, the atoms are in a state of motion into more of a state of rest. And so what happens, it becomes solidified. So stuff that, sound familiar? Stuff that is sort of ethereal, and then it sort of like comes into our dimension.
For sure.
I mean, ice essentially doesn't exist until you bring it into your dimension by, you know, putting water in a certain state, and then, you know. Anyway, so holograms. So going off that concept, holograms, energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by, you're going to love this part, meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov, in which he asked the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the 3 petals radiate outward towards the rim of the bowl, Bentov further asked the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result will be a 3-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Follow me so far? Okay. So drop 3 pebbles in a bowl, flash freeze it, and then you actually say you like lift the ice out of the bowl. You ever lift ice out of a bowl? And then you shine a laser through it. You're going to see the light is going to look like against the wall. It's going to be like you're going to see where the pebbles are, right?
Oh, okay.
Because the light is going through the frozen bowl as it was flash frozen with the ripples and the, okay.
Yeah.
So Bentov further asked the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen, so the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result will be a 3-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. So as the pebbles were falling through there, right? Okay. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye when the glass of water itself is examined. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists since the underlying mathematical principles were worked out by Denis Gabor in 1947. He later won the Nobel Prize for his work. Laboratory demonstration of Gabor's work only occurred years later following the invention of the laser. As biologist Lyle Watson explains, the purest kind of light available to us is that produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are of one frequency. Like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples, that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off an object such as a human face, the resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it can still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face. 13. The part encodes the whole. Okay, the part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. Do you follow?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, this is the hologram, and then if we were to like break it, it's like you have 3 like smaller versions of these.
Yeah.
They don't actually separate. It's the same article. It's the same geode, it's the same face. It's like, take a hologram and you actually like snip it. Remember, like we play with them as kids, you got little holographic cards. Yeah. You'd like snip it and it would be the same image, just in 2 pieces, but it's all the data of the original image. So this is very important. Mm-hmm. So the record will be a hologram of the face. The part encodes the whole. Okay. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection. But the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy in motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the foregoing example, the pebbles represent energy in motion, while the water, before its agitation by the pebbles, represents energy at a state of rest. So we're talking about the 2, remember, the mind, right. The heart, all that. To activate, in effect, to perceive the meaning of a holograph, energy in this case, a coherent light source such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by interaction between the moving energy and the energy at rest. In the simple example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interference pattern in front of the coherent light to project the 3-dimensional holographic image or its meaning into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brained/Mind Bulletin, tells us, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate. 14. The consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, and in and of itself one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram, which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we call consciousness. With respect to states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the process operates in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being conveyed are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with and therefore read the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it. Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field, which comprises the human mind, determines the configuration. So changes in the frequency and amplitude was meditation of the electrostatic field, which comprises the human mind, determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram, which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives, see Exhibit 2, next page. As psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain.
Dude,
you're still with us, listeners.
This is insane. I mean, it's something that we kind of talked about before, like we are one, you know what I mean? And we are one with the universe. So this just makes sense.
Yeah. And not in the sense that like, I think like, there's that stereotype of like the hippie yuppie, like it's like, no, they're not wrong, but like it's really scientific. It's also very beautiful. It's like a crystal. It's like a flower. It's like, no, there's so much math in there, dude. Like there's so much, the wave pattern of the beach, shout out to Ant. Like, I mean, there's our face, it's mathematics. Shout out to Ant. We love you, Ant. But we all really love Joey the most. But
we gotta get Anthony. We gotta get Anthony back in here too,
bro. Ant would be flipping his lid about now. Like, but dude, like that's the thing is like music's a perfect example. Music is mathematical. All of it. The having of the strings, right? The notes and everything. Like there's a cold logic to it, but you can create the most, beautiful sounds and music is something that's so core to all of us. It's a huge industry.
Have you ever heard of Coral Castle?
I have.
And do you know the story behind that?
I've heard it before, but I think, why don't you tell the listeners?
So Coral Castle was made by a man, I can't remember his name, but is out in Florida. And he created this back in the 40s or 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Might be the 80s as well. But he created the Coral Castle, and apparently his there we go. Jerry's bringing it up. He had brought these huge coral blocks. I mean, they're huge, but he had these instruments, and apparently he used to talk to the coral, and he could just lift it up with his voice. He used to hum to the coral.
I think he would have been like, this guy was very old as well.
He was
So
actually, yeah, he was very old, but he actually had links to the Masons as well. His story is very, very awesome and cool.
I
But
don't know if anyone's ever done landscaping, but you see this little rock right here, like that thing would break your back just trying to move that
pick it
into
out.
place. Right.
And
And you
and
see the size of some of these things.
so it seems like I mean, this is not the first story we hear. You hear monks in Tibet, uh, like with their instruments moving big boulders. So frequency and consciousness, like what Jerry was talking about, and then we're gonna go back right into the program here. But we can literally change matter with sound and manipulate it, and it's been proven with. I mean, if you see on the YouTube, you can see people manipulating gravity and having little orbs just like float in it. You know what I mean? So sound is very important, and then in the beginning was the word, like Geraldine was saying. But go ahead, Jerry, take it over.
Yeah, we will. Thanks for bringing up that topic, by the way. It's right in our own backyard if you live in Florida. Okay, brain in phase. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it so that all of the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry using mathematics, sound, being one of those things, to reduce the data to a two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple binary go, no-go system, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information, it wishes to interpret and reduces that information mathematically to two-dimensional form. It can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by the hand of man can process volumes of data and make various comparisons between the data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Bentov states the proposition this way. Our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons. Whenever we perceive something, we always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain in its holistic, nonlinear and nonverbal mode of functioning acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while by operating phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. So the logical and the abstract. And they're saying in states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain in its holistic acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input. Okay, so now it's backward. So now we're going right brain into left brain. So the abstract into reality. And the first thing that kind of came to mind, Joey, is writing down intention, right? You got something 3D, right? And writing is extremely powerful. In the beginning was the word, like the great gift of writing that was supposedly brought by Thoth or the gods or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But yeah, there is definitely a power to writing something. It's bringing something imagined or imaged into reality, evaluation. To the extent that Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement and energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram, not of course accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribram and Bohm appear to account for all transcendental experience, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say of Pribram, currently he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as a part of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. Self-cognition. To complete our outline,
that's a big one right there. Sorry, Jerry, but that's a huge statement right there. Paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages.
It suddenly makes sense of now the things we couldn't account for. Now we can. It's just like learning to play a piano, or like learning to use, yeah, you're right. That's nothing to gloss. That's not a trivial statement.
It's something that people should really think about. Like when people, say of these ancient stories of, wizards, magi, even Jesus Christ himself. Being able to do these miraculous things through word or through sound or through light.
Through faith, like the belief in something that you can't see. Like connection. Anyone? You're right, Joey.
But go ahead, Jerry. Yep.
I'm thinking about what you were saying. Like, thank you for pointing that out. 17, self-cognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals, i.e., self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative. There's the picture, the grid. Okay,
kind of looks hemisphere. Like what do you call it? The mandala, right? Or not the mandala, but what is that?
Like a hypercube, like a tesseract.
A tesseract, or
It's even just looking at it, it's very, we looking at like certain shapes or images, there's like a resonance there. So these a lot of, if anyone looks this up themselves, like there's a lot of really cool diagrams and stuff they put in this. So let's say, moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment, evaluating the functioning of their thought process. I'm not used to talking a whole lot, so I'm trying not to.
No, but dude, I needed reading sometime this week. I needed something to read. I'm glad that you're reading it. So
I love audiobooks.
You're a trooper, bro.
Evaluating the functioning of their thought process against various objective standards they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram. So like we know, like we're conscious of being consciousness. We're aware of our awareness. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram. Project them out, quote, perceive that projection, put it through comparison with the memory aspect where its evaluation standards of measure are stored of its own hologram, and measure or sense the difference using three-dimensional geometry. And then binary go, no-go pulse to yield binary go, no-go pulse to yield verbal cognition about the self. To yield verbal cognition about the self. Okay. It's like self-creation. Okay. How you doing, Ghost? 18. Time, space, dimension. Up to this point, time, space, dimension. Someone needs to learn how to use a photocopier too. You okay, buddy? All right. Time, space, dimension. Up to this, I'm going to clip my head. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram, which can be accessed in the dimension of time space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time space is the next task which must be addressed.
Which Dr. Greer talks about also.
Right. To do this, we must first appreciate what is or what time and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location, which is distinguishable from other locations. Space, in parentheses. Energy, which is not confined, is force without limit, without dimension, without the limits of form. It is infinity. It is infinity. Cannot move because there is nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location. Oh boy. And is absent from other locations. Okay, where we got here? All right. But if energy, sorry, Joey. But if energy limited to a specific location, take two. But if energy is in the state of infinity, there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end. It is conscious force, the fundamental, primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Like, we get it, bro. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest. Therefore, cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the created universe, but it cannot be perceived by consciousness operating in the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself.
So basically, that's insane, dude. That's insane. I can't even have a description of what they're saying. I mean, I understand it, but
it's like something that you would come to understanding after like years and years of meditation. Or
yeah, I think it sounds like ego death,
schooling, or anything like that. Yeah, my dog teaches me about ego death every day. But you know, it's like we're going to move into. I mean, I know we're going to kind of come to a close, but this is kind of a visual reference to what I just read. So here's the absolute and infinity. You know, we could call that like the ether or God, or, you know, whatever way we can try to
energy, 0 point, or consciousness.
Non-locality, you know. So they're saying that like something in infinity is technically at rest because it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's neither here nor there. Remember what I mentioned about Planck's distance? 10 to the negative 33, right? This is the smallest, according to science as we know it, this is the smallest distance which anything in existence can move on our material plane is a 0.1 followed by, a decimal point with 33 zeros before the number 1. So that's the absolute smallest. And this is the energy grid. This is the frequency at which like the energy grid around an atom's nucleus vibrates, right? And so here we have the energy oscillation wave. Here's the portion of oscillating energy in time space. So we're going to, that's what this is talking about here, is that when you're doing gateway, when you're doing the binaural beats, when you're doing this activity or you're doing transcendental meditation, your consciousness, which we're now sort of coming to see as a hologram or as a concept that is, I don't know how you would put it. So our existence is kind of made up by our consciousness and not the other way around. So this is it. Like this is like left brain. Like this is the realm in which we interpret, the dinner that mom's cooking, or your dog just scratched the sofa or something like that, or, something you're smoking or something you're drinking or something you're grilling.
The math.
Right. And then here it says clicked out portion of oscillating energy traversing intermediate dimensions. So
literally the out there field.
Yeah, you're vibrating at a certain frequency, your heart and everything is synced up. And then your perception or what you're telling yourself is like, you're pulling this. It's not coming from you. So it's law of attraction stuff. This is all stuff that's coming from something outside of you, but it's still you. It's because there is no you, there is no me, right? It's all one. But then when you start to focus in on you, it's like, because we're the hologram that like all of us have the data of everything else.
And it just kind of just brings like to what we talked about before. I mean, and with our groups, we're not at a point to where we're civilized, a level 1 civilization. Well, but we can oscillate to that point. We can oscillate our reality, our brainwaves, and become that civilization, that first civilization planet. We just need to get everybody on board and vibrate. Literally, everyone has to vibrate to that point.
Everybody must vibrate. And
we could become a great civilization. We could become eternal. We could become, ethereal or whatever. I don't know what's the other word for it. Eternal. I can't think of it right now, but yeah, conscious, higher beings. Ethereal.
Yeah, you can become more than you are, or realize the true
superhuman.
Sure, or perhaps like our humanity is a much more simplified, like boiled down version of that. Because to be that would be so ubiquitous, it'd be very kind of, you're more like a nebula than you are like a planet. It's like, yeah, they're made of each other, but there's still one is like the result of the other, I don't know, man. It's still just really cool. And I really like this paper, and I really love that we're
series, dude.
Yeah, I love that we're reading this, because this is like for someone like me who needs like to know what is actually occurring when I'm meditating. And this is actually going to help my meditation and my more creative process by going, hey, this is actually what's taking place when you do that. It's just like you're playing an instrument, and your brain is interpreting the sound. It's the same as like, so there's nothing really like, like super fancy about it, or like really mysterious. It's really science. Like it's really just you kind of tapping into the nature of the universe, kind of like using a magnifying glass to focus the energy of the sun to make a fire, to what might be perceived as magic by someone else is like, no, I'm manipulating the nature of our universe right now. And it's just so fun doing this with you.
Oh yeah. No, we're going to manipulate more. We're going to turn our reality by doing this. We are literally pushing
right now.
We're creating our reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're creating that opportunity to reach out and bring up the energy, bringing up that frequency, oscillating it, and oscillating our environment.
Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops, because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. So there's really no limits to it, and we're thinking on it, and by thinking about it, we're bringing it into reality. Mm-hmm. So, do we make consciousness, or does consciousness make us? Like, does it matter? Because and I think we should really like take some time to practice this, and to really see like, hey, is this something we could actually like put into practice? Because then science applied as a technology.
I really want. What really brings me, what's interesting about those, they give exact hertz. They said megahertz, or I wonder if that could be applied into certain technologies we have now, like with binaural beats and stuff like that.
I think they do, because when your brain is canceling that out, let's go and listen to it. Let's try it. But when your brain's actually canceling it out, your body is vibrating to that, or your brain is vibrating to that, which then your brain controls your body.
Maybe that's something we could collab on, or Jerry, and figure out which hertz and what technology we have now. Okay. Hey, we're gonna close real quick. And I know we just kind of ran out of time there. About like 5 minutes. Do you have any closing thoughts about what we just read?
Don't talk about it. Be about it. Let's do it. Now I'm going to jump off here. I'm going to throw the earbuds in. By the way, that's the thing, is use headphones, use earbuds, preferably maybe a high quality, like maybe these headphones, and get relaxed and just see if, just give yourself 5-10 minutes. The worst thing that can happen is you actually relax, turn your phone off, anything like that.
Yeah. I think that's something we definitely should, let's
just try it.
Let's try. I think in the next episode, we should try, actually listening to binaural beats and, you know what I mean? And, just trying it out and see if we, both have a similar effect, I think that would be an interesting, little, experiment for us. I've been using binaural beats for a while, and also has Jerry. So, yeah.
Well, let's continue this. Let's make sure, let people know we left off on number 19. So on chapter 19. So we're really not even halfway through this yet, but
yeah.
So anyway, don't mean to keep on talking over you, man.
No, you're good. We're gonna, next, so we're gonna do it next episode. We're gonna do a part 3 to this. We're going to say thanks to our sponsor, Shaman Digital Drugs. We are going to link them. Okay. We're going to link the Shaman Digital Drugs binaural beat distributor. And thanks to them. Thanks you, Jerry, for leading this awesome podcast, dude. We're learning so much, and we're going to apply most of these things to what we're learning right now. And thanks to you, Monroe Institute, for dropping this again. Thank you, Monroe Institute. Maybe we could get an interview with them someday.
Shout out to Bob Monroe. I think he might have died, but we don't know. Hey, I mean, his information has got to be out there somewhere if he did.
Hey, thank you, Jerry. We're going to catch you next episode.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Give us a thumbs up. Make sure you share this. Make sure you boost the algorithm. Share it with some of your other friends who'd be into this sort of thing. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you, Jerry. Good night.
Later.